Guten Tag, everyone. I'm Little Luther, here to teach you some simple theology. Martin Luther said in the Small-Cold Articles that even a 7-year-old child knows what the church is. So I'm here to teach you some theology that's so simple that even a child could understand it. On today's episode, we're going to talk about internet communion. So during this era of COVID-19, many churches have been forced to close and hold online services. This may lead some churches to participate in a practice of consecrating the elements of Holy Communion via video chat. In this video, I'm going to give you several reasons for why this is an unbiblical practice and is not in keeping with the right administration of Holy Communion. Those in favor of internet communion will argue that it is the words of institution that are important, for a sacrament is the word of God combined with a physical element. Therefore, they say, as long as you have the word spoken and the elements have that word spoken over them, then it is a valid sacrament. They may say something like, it doesn't matter if the words are spoken from 40 centimeters away or 40,000 kilometers away. As long as the word is spoken over an element, then it is valid. But the problem here is that they have forgotten a key aspect of the sacraments, the action. This is the first reason for why we can't consecrate Holy Communion via a video chat. Jesus said to do this. Jesus commanded us to do as he did. Now, this does not mean that we must do everything exactly as Jesus did it. We don't absolutely have to break the bread or have only one loaf or one cup of wine. To this degree, there is some freedom. But there are a few key aspects that must be retained. One is consecration, as we see in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 16, that we are to bless the cup and the bread. Also 2, distribution, and 3, reception. Those who say only the word and elements are needed forget about the actions of distribution and reception. Jesus tells the apostles and pastors thereafter to do this as he did. And what did Jesus do? He took bread and after blessing it, he gave it to his disciples. A pastor cannot give the consecrated bread or wine through the internet, just as a pastor cannot baptize through the internet. In Matthew chapter 28 verse 19, Jesus told the disciples to go forth and to baptize people of all nations. And baptism means to wash. A pastor may be able to speak the triune name via video chat, but he cannot pour water on an individual's head. And neither can he distribute the Lord's body and blood in the bread and wine via a video chat. The second reason is that Jesus said to take the bread and the wine. Proponents of internet communion might dismiss the first reason, saying the pastor doesn't need to distribute it. The elements are right in front of the laptop, so the layperson can just pick them up. But Jesus commands the communicants to take the bread and the wine, which are his body and blood, and to eat them. Now, proponents of internet communion might argue, but they are taking them. They are picking them up from in front of the laptop. But this is not what Jesus meant by the words take. The reception of Holy Communion is closely tied to the distribution. The pastor gives and the communicant takes. Just as a pastor cannot distribute the sacrament through the internet, neither can a communicant receive the sacrament through the internet. Now, the third point is that Jesus said, this bread is my body, this cup is my blood. The bread and the wine that is his body and blood, which we are to eat, is not just any bread or any wine, but this bread and this wine. Consecration means to set apart. During the consecration, the pastor sets aside specific bread and specific wine for Holy Communion. Then he speaks the words of institution over them to bless them and to consecrate them for holy use. These words are not spoken over all bread or all wine, but specifically the elements that are set before the pastor for this special use. Not any bread and wine within earshot becomes the body and blood. For example, in large churches, it is common for the pastor to have some extra wine stored in a flask in case the cup were to be drunk empty before all had communed. When the pastor refills the cup, he must consecrate this new cup of wine, for the wine in the flask had not been consecrated prior. When the pastor consecrates the bread and wine, his words are not spoken vaguely or universally over any and all of bread and wine. Instead, his words are spoken over specific elements that are set before him for the purpose of being distributed by his hand and received by those before him. When the pastor consecrates the bread and the wine, he is consecrating that which is before him, and not that which is before you in front of your laptop. One can plainly see this in the words spoken by the pastor during distribution. The pastor says, "Take and eat. This bread here is the body of Christ." He does not say, "Take and eat, that bread over there is the body of Christ." The bread and wine before the pastor is the body and blood of Christ, not the bread before you. Lastly, it is important to remember that the words of institution are not some kind of magic spell, and that all bread and all wine that are within earshot become the body and blood of Christ. These words are to bless or to consecrate specific elements in a specific time and place for a specific purpose. If the words are not spoken over bread and wine, then they are not valid. If the words are spoken over the bread and wine for a purpose other than distribution and reception, then they are not valid. And if the words are taken outside of that time and place, then they are not valid. The words only hold power in that specific moment and in that specific location, when the pastor consecrates the bread and wine in front of him. If a pastor uses words outside of that moment, then the words have no power. For example, if he were to speak them in a sermon or a conversation, if a pastor was having lunch with a friend and they had some bread and wine on the table, and the pastor in the conversation spoke the words of institution, they do not magically make that bread and that wine the body and blood of Christ. For the words of institution are separated from the action and use of the sacrament. In the same way, a voice recording of a pastor has no power to consecrate the elements. If you have an audio recording of a pastor speaking the words of institution and you hold them over some bread and wine, they don't magically make the bread and wine the body and blood of Christ. And what is important to remember is that all video chats, including live streams, are in essence a recording. It doesn't matter how quick the recording can transmit between you and the pastor. The microphone on his end records the pastor speaking, and a speaker on your end plays back what has been recorded. In order for the consecration to be valid, it must be the words from the pastor's mouth spoken over the elements and not a recorded message. This recording has no more power to consecrate the elements than a YouTube video from a week earlier.
But Luther, if the lay people can't have a pastor present in person and the pastor can't consecrate the elements via video chat, then why don't we just let the lay people consecrate it themselves?
You raise an interesting point there, Libby.